We should have already had this conversation many, many years ago. What you're doing in your bedroom, what you're doing in private, is affecting everybody. Pornography is destroying us.
Meanwhile,
it's so crazy to me that conservatives will make this argument while at the same time being like, but you don't have the authority to make me wear a mask for the greater public good. It's just like, what? You not being vaccinated or you like refusing to wear a mask tangibly hurts people in like a direct consequential way, as opposed to like watching pornography, which doesn't do that, but you'll make the argument for against pornography, but not against but not in favor of like public health. It's really insane.
we're trying to have a real conversation here with my guest, Senator Dusty Deevers, who is a state senator from Oklahoma and who is one of the very few conservatives putting his money and time and effort where everyone's mouth is and actually pushing back against what I consider to be the most ubiquitous and one of the most severe political problems in the country, and that is porn.
What's today's topic?
Senator Deevers, thank you for coming on.
Hey, thank you for having me, Michael. I really appreciate it.
Senator, what is the bill that you are proposing? Because the media are making you out to be some kook who's obsessed with sex
his name is actually
and porn,
Dusty Beavers.
and you're pushing a fringe, unconstitutional kind of law to what?
Hopefully ban porn. Pornography is defiling and it's corrosive, it's domineering, and it's absolutely destroying our culture.
There's no way you can actually do that. Like, it's clearly a violation of the First Amendment, trying to ban porn. Like, absolutely not something that you could feasibly do ever under our current Constitution. Last night, Echoplex made us watch Scientology TV. You would never do this to us, right? I don't think so. I might make you watch like advertisements for like Scientology or like weird fringe cults that put out like advertising, but I'd never make you watch their television.
Culture, and there's really no good use for it. And we want to push the Supreme Court to the test and run the Miller test, so to speak, to see if there really is any value for Oklahomans for having pornography.
You mentioned the Miller test. Could you explain what that is to people who have not followed the changes in America's perception of obscenity?
Yeah, sure. Miller versus California in the 70s, the Supreme Court established a three-pronged obscenity test to determine if speech was or expression could be labeled obscene, and if it is if it's obscene, then it's not protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, and so it can be prohibited. And there's three tests essentially. The first one is the arousal test. Whether the average person applying, our contemporary community standards would find the work as a whole prurient or arousing. The second would be offensive, or the gag reflex test. And then the third would be a serious value test, where it asks if the material lacks serious literary or artistic or political.
Notice how all of this falls into the same category for like fascists. It's all vibes based. It's all vibes based, guys. There's no like empirical test you could do to determine any of these things. It's all vibes. Oh, it makes me feel icky. It makes me feel weird. Oh, it makes my pee-pee hard.
Political or scientific value. So we really are looking from the state of Oklahoma. We're saying, look, the Constitution of our nation does not protect obscenity. Supreme Court has also upheld that it doesn't protect obscenity. And the Constitution also, according to the 10th Amendment, says that Oklahoma has the right to protect its own people. And so we are essentially just saying, do the people of Oklahoma, a jury in Oklahoma, want pornography And
Hey,
really,
Christina
the
Amazon.
reality is, from a legal level, we should have already had this conversation many, many years ago. But the truth is, up until about 40 or 50 years ago, we didn't have to have this conversation. The sexual revolution has pushed this conversation into the front to say, really, what's the good in obscenity for our nation?
50. I need to remind all of you that 50 years ago was, the middle of the 1970s, and they absolutely had pornography back then. they are you kidding me? Like this guy was like creaming his jeans over finding like a used Playboy in a dumpster. Okay, like that was the state of things 50 years ago.
And we've proven that it's completely corrosive to our society.
You mentioned how 40, 50 years ago we wouldn't have had to have this conversation. Of course, we had laws against obscenity all over the country. We had a much lower threshold for what constitutes obscenity for the vast majority of our nation's history. They raise it a little bit, like in Miller or some other decisions as well. But I agree with you, even by any modern conception of what constitutes obscenity, high-speed, ubiquitous internet pornography falls into that category. I agree with you that there's an appetite for it. They tried it twice in the 90s. There was, at the national level, the Communications Decency Act and the Child Online Protection Act. Republicans and Democrats supported it. Bill Clinton signed it into law. And then liberal judges applying crazy, anti-historical standards shot those both down. And so now we have this problem that we have now rather than nipping it in the bud 20, 25 years ago. Why is porn such a big issue? You're going to have people on the left and you're going to have some libertarians say, oh, well, yeah, it's kind of naughty and nasty, but why do you care what someone does in his own bedroom? And is this really the biggest issue? We got an invasion on the southern border. We got an economy in shambles. Porn, isn't that kind of far down the list of priorities?
Yeah, that's a great question. That question's popped up a lot, and I'd say a few things. Number one, every person looking at porn knows that it is condemning them. There's not a single person who looks at it and says, oh, this is a good thing for me. This is a good thing for the people that I'm watching here. This is what I'm seeing happen here. Even if it's less violent, is a good thing. Nobody is saying that because they have a conscience. They're created by God, and their conscience is either approving them or accusing them before the holy character of God. So they already know, number one. Secondly, porn is defiling. And what we see in the bedroom spills out into the outdoors.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If you don't believe in Christianity here, like everything he's saying here is absolutely insane bullshit, you know? Like, if anything, what's so fascinating to me about like a lot of evangelical Christians who are like this guy is that they just project their own issues onto everyone else. I experienced this, so clearly everyone must. When I watch my filthy, degenerate pornography, I wind up taking it out my guilt on my wife by beating her. Therefore, that's what happens everywhere. Like that's this guy's lacking the theory of mind. Yeah, exactly. Notice how he wants Oklahoma to have the choice, but he doesn't allow a ballot measure or a referendum. Yeah, isn't that weird? Isn't it weird how when he tries to frame it as a democratic issue, he also simultaneously has to go, but we don't actually want democracy to establish to like decide whether or not Oklahomans want this. I just intuitively know that Oklahomans want this and will impose it upon them because that's what I think they want based on zero evidence, right? Again, it's the fascist thing. It's the fascist thing of like, you don't need any evidence, you just go off of vibes. The vibe he perceives is, well, everyone hates pornography and we should ban it. But he does not want actual empirical evidence to that effect.
What happens indoors is always going to go outdoors with porn. It disfigures one's view of everything that is good and true and beautiful. I mean, think of the modern art that we have. It's ugly. It's meant to defile and to break.
Yeah, this guy's
boundaries.
just straight
It's
up a fascist.
transgressive. It is doing everything to it's truly pagan.
Notice how he moved from talking about pornography to talking about modern art being too transgressive. Modern art is too thought provoking. Therefore, we need to ban it. Yeah, no. Like I'm telling you guys, he's doing all of the Nazi things because his ideology and like a Nazi's are indistinguishable. There's no daylight between them.
Porn comes from a pagan sensibility of oneness, monism, rather than there's God and then there's everything that's created. It wants to disfigure everything, transgress it all, and create truly a queer theory worked out just from the initial stages. And another thing is, porn is domineering. It is a wildfire that cannot be controlled, and it taps into the voracious, insatiable appetite of the corrupted flesh. It's never satisfied. Let me tell you what Ted Bundy said. A lot of people have heard this, but some people in the younger generation have not heard that Ted Bundy, he was a serial killer, admitted to killing over 30 people, and he said this in prison: like most other kinds of addiction, I would keep looking for more potent, more explicit, more graphic kinds of material. Like an addiction, you keep craving something which is harder, something which gives you a greater sense of excitement until you reach the point that pornography only goes so far. He said that pornography is what led him down the path of doing these wicked and heinous serial killings. And then he said this: I've lived in prison a long time now. I've met a lot of men.
Yeah, we should definitely take the anecdotal points of a serial killer. Very trustworthy. Good job. Yeah, definitely, dude. Just don't find any actual evidence for your points. Don't find any actual like studies or citations. Just find like an anecdote and like from like the most unreliable person you could possibly imagine. Yeah, no, in his rhetoric here, he's agreeing with the serial killer, dude. And conservatives will just nod along. People will just be like, yeah, that serial killer, he was cooking. He was really up to something there. Like, that's crazy, dog. He's an elected official in Oklahoma.
And who were motivated to commit violence just like me, and without exception,
but I still want to know how the
every one of
sexting
them
comes in.
was deeply involved in pornography, without question, without exception, deeply influenced and consumed by addiction to pornography. It is not merely what happens indoors. It's going outdoors, and it's even going outdoors and creating, I think, the corrosive level of society that we've got right now. So we've got to destroy that which is destroying our foundations. And it's destroying the foundations, particularly in the home. And there's no question that Satan and in his serpentine theocracy is wanting to create a whole nother system where he rules and where God's holy character is not.
Does this guy have the audacity to claim that like people who belong to all other groups aside from him are advocating for a theocracy? Dude, evangelical like Nazi Christians like this guy are just constantly projecting. They want a theocracy, so they accuse like anyone who disagrees with them of wanting a theocracy. It's wild, dude. Whatever happened to the separation of church and state? Tradcaths like Michael Knowles don't believe in a separation of church and state, which we'll get to. There's another segment that we have queued up where Michael Knowles specifically argues that the separation between church and state isn't real, it doesn't exist, and should be ignored. So, yeah.
the standard, where you see in traditional values and traditional families, it is destroying us.
It's such a simple, clear point that you're making. And it's something that even a lot of people on the right have forgotten. Just as you can't separate body from soul, I guess the transgender activists are trying to do that now, just as Gnostics have been doing that for all of history. Nothing new under the sun. I guess it's all old versions of paganism. But just as you can't separate from the body from the soul, you can't separate the person in the bedroom from the person in the streets. It's the same person. You can't actually live two lives. A lot of people are duplicitous. A lot of people endeavor to lead two lives. But you're the same guy, and it will disfigure your mind. It will disfigure your perception. It might well disfigure your body. And the proof of this is that we were told in the 90s...
You know, the issue that we're having here, though, is that the people encouraging this duality of existence are conservative Christians. If you didn't have like this immense societally imposed guilt while living within evangelical Christianity, right? You could simply like be like, yeah, I like having threesomes. You could be like, yeah, I like sitting in the cuck chair. Yeah, I like having sex. You know, I went on Pornhub the other day and had a great time. You could just openly talk about these things and not have this problem. So again, even in their formulation of this being a problem, the people imposing the problematic attitudes are them themselves.
Oh, you know, just let people do whatever they want in the bedroom. It's no big deal. Stop being the purity police, whatever. And then what, 5 minutes later, you've got massive pride parades in the streets with guys wearing weird leather outfits and smacking each other and inviting children to these kinds of parades. And then they say, oh, it's no big deal.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, what people do in their bedroom is none of your business. What people talk about on their phones is none of your business. I'm sorry. Oh no, did a child go to a pride parade and see a man wearing like leather straps and more like clothing than they might see on a traditional beach? The horror. Oh no, men wearing more clothing than Speedos on a beach. Oh no, men with more clothing on than like your average person in swimming trunks. Oh no, the horror. This is what they're scared about. Like, they're the ones projecting their own insecurities and weirdness onto other people. We shouldn't have to bear that burden for them.
It's the children probably shouldn't even be at those parades. Well, okay, first of all, it's in public. But second of all, they don't leave it in the street. Then all of a sudden the activism makes it into the classroom. Then all of a sudden the activism gets codified in law to the point that now you've got school administrators encouraging children and enabling children to take dangerous chemicals, hormones, block their puberty, call them different names, use the wrong bathroom without their parents' permission. You know, at what point was that?
So, like, what's interesting to me here is, like, he's, like, implying that teachers have the ability to give, like, hormones or puberty blockers to children, which is not the case. There's no place in America where teachers can get, like, kids in their class prescription drugs. That there's just not, that doesn't exist, right? And on the flip side, like, yeah, your kid, when they go to school, is outside of the parents' control. If your kid that you gave the name William to goes to school and is like, I want to be called Bill, like, their friends and teachers will call them Bill, even if their name is William. That's not like a crazy thing. That's been happening for the entire history of schools existing. And this, oddly, doesn't mess people up. I'm sure Michael Knowles has had the experience of going to school and calling himself Mike, or having people call him Mike, even though his given name is Michael. This isn't new. But he's acting like this. It's this hysterical thing. They're grooming these kids. Were you groomed when people called you Mike? Michael Knowles? No. When you asked people to call you a nickname and they did, was that grooming you? No. It's the same principle for trans kids. They're trying out new names. They might change their names. They might go back to their name. That's fine. That's their prerogative. They can do that. Oh, they're firmly identifying as another gender enough to come out to like everyone in their school, but they don't feel safe coming out to you. That's because you're not making them feel safe. That's your failure as a parent. That's not their failure. That's not the school's failure. That's your failure. Again, that's what these kinds of people do. That's what fascists do, right? Fascists project their failures onto other people. And basically, Michael Knowles has made a career out of doing that. I mean, you could just look back at his original acting reel for more clarification on that.
That's supposed to just stop. At what point, the conservatives were always pilloried for saying this is a slippery slope and man is a being. Man is a unified being with integrity. So what he does in one realm is going to affect him in another realm. Well, I mean, we're pretty far down that slope as it is. And I can hear the objections to you, Senator. What people are going to say is, this guy, he's some yokel from Oklahoma, some Bible thumper with a funny accent, and he's talking about, well, this guy probably wants a theocracy or something. And they're going to brush over the fact that you are citing philosophy, you're citing psychology, you're citing science, you're citing basically everything we can know about how individuals and societies have worked for all of history. And they're going to write this off.
The crazy part is, at no point in any of this video has he cited any of those things. It's so strange, Dodd. It's so strange, Dodd. I tried to say dude. I said Dodd. Yeah, there have been 0 citations in this video, and he's like, "Oh man, you've cited so much information." Has he though? Because it doesn't really seem like that to me.
And say, well,
yeah. So far, the main citation is a serial killer who is well known for lying while in prison. That's his one citation. Ted Bundy, eminent scholar and philosopher, and
some Bible thumper. So what do you say to them?
Well, I think none of them wants their daughter to grow up as an OnlyFans celebrity. And that's the truth is porn. There's no.
Look, if I ever had a daughter, right, and they wanted to be an OnlyFans model, and that would make them happy, and they could have a successful life and career doing that, hell yeah, more power to you, okay? I see nothing inherently wrong with that. The people who are putting all of the emotional weight, who are putting the the trappings of failure on that career path, are these people who are already sad and pathetic, and I disregard their opinions entirely. Their main argument is, well, OnlyFans girls make me feel weird, and I don't like that. Right? Like that's the main argument, and I'm not moved by that. And if my kid could ever be happy doing like OnlyFans content, happy, successful, has healthcare, has a roof over their head, etc., then more power to them. Like, my God, imagine having your priorities so out of whack that like you would rather your kid like be unhappy or suffer. I don't get it. I just don't.
No closed door porn. What you're doing in your bedroom, what you're doing in private, is affecting my children. It's affecting my friends. It's affecting everybody. So we get our rights from God. Government doesn't give us our rights. Our Constitution says this very thing. We get our rights from God. And so then we have to ask, what is liberty? Well, you have the liberty to do that which is good for society. This government stands in to protect good doers and punish evil doers. And when there's an evildoer who is stripping away, and something that's evil that's taking over a society, and it's stripping away the good, the true, the beautiful, There's no liberty to do that. Now, at some point, we're having to make decisions at what's kind of bumps up to that level of crime. And not all sin is crime. But this, pornography, has come to the level that nobody recognizes that it's good, that it's got any truth or any value. It's not good, it's not true, it's not beautiful. It is absolutely degrading and defiling, and it's domineering. It is controlling. And it's not as though it's free from a controlling higher power. That higher power.
Principalities and powers.
That's exactly right. It's principalities, powers, and rulers of the air. And they are setting up and waging war against humanity. And
no, Midnight and All Night, Rhizome is completely correct. And also, just a genuinely great dude. But Michael Knowles is basically the closest we can get to like a very advanced, like mimic of some kind. Like he's like not quite human. He's like a ghoul underneath that skin. You can tell. He's like a monster. He doesn't quite know how to make like human facial expressions.
And what is good, right, and true is from God who created us. And so it is a power, it's a spiritual warfare. And these people are getting, anyone who gets caught up into pornography is caught up not just in a power of flesh and blood, but a power that they aren't able to control, that's degrading them and seeking to eradicate their use, their value, and true society.
One last question before I let you go. I know that you were right when you say, at least that pretty much no one thinks this stuff is good. In fact, I just interviewed a journalist who did an undercover investigation of senior staff for the biggest porn company in the world. Even the senior staff are saying, yeah, this is bad. It creates addictions. It's not good. However, there was one person that this journalist, Arden Young, interviewed. And he said, no, if you're a kid and you stumble onto this kind of stuff, it can help you explore your sexuality. It can liberate you. And I have heard liberals say that pornography and the sexual revolution more broadly, it helps free you from the shackles that might have been imposed on you. It helps you to discover your true desires and your true self and what might really get rid of all the chains of oppression foisted on you by your family and morality and society and blah, blah, blah. What do you say to these self-styled liberators?
Well, Satan said the same thing to Adam and Eve whenever he first came to them. And the first words we have from a supernatural being in the whole of Scripture, other than God, is, did God really say? Did God really say? And what Satan was doing was setting up a war in the conscience. It says the conscience was created by God. It works according to the law that's written on our hearts. Every person has it. But Satan is wanting to set up an internal war of envy. We don't have enough of what God has given us, so we have to envy some other outlet. And we start to recognize ourselves as true gods. And that's what porn, the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. The lust of the eyes and the lust of the flesh is what porn is. 1 John 2. So it's setting up the envy of godhood, that we are not wanting to retain our position as creatures who are created in the image of God and who are here to enjoy Him forever and enjoy each other according to God's good boundaries. We then want to envy godhood, just like Satan did. He put that question out there, and we've been questioning. So this, libertarian who is actually warring against the true liberty.
Hello, collab.
This libertarian type of a mindset, or libertine, really, mindset, would ask the very question that Satan asked Adam and Eve. Did God really say? And then it's, you can be God because I'm trying to be God as well.
You very...
Fun fact, Satan's not real, and even if you do believe in the Bible, even if you are a Christian, Satan isn't real in the Bible either.
These guys are going home to their boyfriends after this.
I mean, at least Michael Knowles is. Yeah, no, like, even in the context of the Bible, the word Satan arises from a mistranslation of the term ha-satan, which is just the adversary, but in the sense of like how a lawyer is your adversary, you know? Ha-satan in the context of the Bible is mentioned prominently in Job, where, you know, it's not like Satan and God are just chilling out and then Satan like challenges God. No, ha-satan is like the advocate, the adversary, and is like, do you really think that guy is as righteous as he says he is, as you think he might be? Like, he's doing a lawyer thing. It makes way more sense when you realize that that's just an entire mistranslation of the Bible that has now had like centuries of apologia done around it to normalize it and integrate it to the rest of the Bible. A lot of the conceptions of Satan come directly from Paradise Lost and Dante's Inferno, which I need to remind everybody are not Christian. That's not the holy text of Christianity. Those are fictional novels. Yeah, it's literally like Satan in evangelical conceptions and evangelical circles is a scapegoat to justify people being awful to each other. You know, ironically, incredibly popular among the party of personal responsibility.
Insightful point, Senator Devers, and a very courageous and important bill. Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for fighting this fight and being one of the handful of Republicans in America at the state level who has a spine. Appreciate you coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Michael.
Wild stuff. Again, these people are fascists and are trying to take control of the American government, and if Donald Trump wins, he will put them in positions of power that will allow them to do the craziest, most conservative, most fascist things that they can conceive of. So, again, worth noting that this is what we're up against, you know?